So he left when his term was over. In 1948, he moved back to New York, where he worked as a waiter and bartender up and down the East Coast. In 1952, a friend of his who was going to a dance asked my father to accompany him because he had a first date with this new girl, and he was nervous, and he just wanted my dad there for moral support. As it turns out, that this girl he was seeing also asked another girl to accompany her for moral support, and that girl was my mom. And that's how they met. And they hit it off right away, and they loved to dance and dated for about a year. My mom's mom was a bit tough and didn't approve of Carlos because she thought he was a bit wild, you know, bartender and all that type of stuff. Really worked on convincing her to break up with my father, and you know, he was just too wild. And you know, the exact words of my father, I heard on the tape shortly before coming down here, was that, quote, said, "I wasn't wild, I was just happy-go-lucky." But my grandmother convinced my mother to break up with my father, thought that was a thing to do. So my parents had a date in Central Park, and before my mother could say anything, my father proposed. My parents still joke about how she responded, which was something like, "I can't believe I'm saying yes. I came here to break up with you." My parents married in 1953 and lived in Brooklyn. I was born 9 months later, and 12 and 14 years later, respectively, my sisters Joan and Elizabeth were born, bringing a close to my 12 glorious years as an only child. Although my father worked long hours as the owner of La Bilbaina Restaurant for over 20 years, he always had the time for us. He was never too busy to stop what he was doing to help us if we asked. On top of that, he found the time and energy to entertain guests at home and go out with my mother dancing. They would often go out to dinner, Broadway shows, museums, the Philharmonic, and so on. I remember even as a little kid thinking that they were pretty cool, and snappy dressers as well. In 1981, my father retired, and like so many New Yorkers, moved down here with my mom and 2 sisters. Over the years, my parents have continued to entertain, go to the theater, and play bridge with their friends. I phoned them countless times only to get their answering machine because they were out doing something. I've joked with my wife, Michelle, how we live in Chicago, we're young, and my parents go out and party. In 2003, we threw, or should I say my sister Elizabeth threw my parents a surprise party for their 50th anniversary. I came down and filmed some of it. Looking at the tapes recently, it was beautiful to see how much they loved each other. But as anyone who knows my parents saw, it was easy for them to see how inseparable they were and how wonderfully they joked and played off each other. My father's life was long, and he experienced many things. As a teenager, he witnessed the horrors of war during the Spanish Civil War, and as a young man served in the Pacific during the end of World War II. And somehow, it never made him a hard or bitter man. As a matter of fact, he was the gentlest, kindest, and most compassionate man I've ever met. His life revolved around family and friends, and he loved us all unconditionally. As a child and young adult, my father, copy, paste, a little too many times the editing. Sorry. My memories of the time I got to spend with my father are all wonderful. Thanks to him and my mom, I can look back on my life and say I wouldn't change a thing. I hope that I can live the rest of my life with as much honor and grace as my father did. I'd like to finish by reading the words of a Shawnee chief, Tecumseh, this death song. Trouble no one about his religion. Respect others in their views and demand that they respect yours. Love your life, perfect your life, beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and of service to your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the great divide. Give a word or sign of salute when meeting or passing a friend or even a stranger. Show respect to all people, but grovel to none. When you rise in the morning, give thanks for the light, for your life, for your strength. Give thanks for your food and for the joy of living. If you see no reason to give thanks, the fault lies in yourself. When your time comes to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home.